Basic psychology. Bowlby's theory of maternal deprivation. Did you know that before John Bowlby developed his theory of attachment, he had a theory of maternal deprivation?
No, I didn't. What is maternal deprivation?
In the context of child development, deprivation refers to the loss of emotional care that would normally be provided by a primary caregiver.
I see. So, what did Bowlby's theory of maternal deprivation suggest?
Bowlby believed that maternal love from an attachment figure was just as important for mental health and emotional development as vitamins were for physical health. Without this, he proposed a link between maternal deprivation and affectionless psychopathy and emotional maladjustment in later life.
Wow, that's a strong connection. What were the other key components of his theory?
Bowlby also believed that loss or prolonged separation from an attachment figure during the critical period could lead to emotional disturbance. However, if suitable emotional care is provided by a substitute, then deprivation may be avoided and the potential for long-term psychological harm.
I see. So, the effects of maternal deprivation could include an inability to form bonds with others and a higher risk of depression?
Exactly. Such individuals may most commonly be diagnosed with an attachment disorder due to their emotional maladjustments.
This is really fascinating. It's amazing how important maternal attachment is for a child's development.
Indeed. Bowlby's theory highlighted the crucial role of maternal love and care in shaping a child's social, emotional, and mental well-being. Bowlby's 44 Thieves Study 1944. The 44 Thieves study was a study that Bowlby conducted to investigate the link between early childhood experiences and later emotional difficulties.
That's fascinating. What did he find?
Bowlby analyzed the case histories of 44 children who had been caught for theft and persistent offending, and compared them to a control group of 44 children.
And what did he discover?
He identified a subgroup of 32% of the children, which he labeled as affectional psychopaths. These children lacked normal signs of affection and a sense of responsibility for their behavior.
Wow, that's quite a finding. What did Bowlby attribute this to?
Through interviews with the children, Bowlby found that this subgroup had experienced early periods of prolonged separation from their mothers, often due to hospitalization or being in foster care.
I see. So he believed this early maternal deprivation was a causal link to their later emotional difficulties?
Exactly. This study was the basis for Bowlby's maternal deprivation theory, which had a significant impact on our understanding of child development and attachment. Evaluating Bowlby's maternal deprivation theory. One of the main weaknesses of Bowlby's research is that it was based on retrospective information, which can lead to inaccuracies in recall.
I see. That's an important limitation to consider.
Exactly. Additionally, some of the children in his studies were only separated for short periods, and it's difficult to believe this contributed to their delinquent behavior.
That's a good point. Not all children who experience separation from their parents end up with emotional or behavioral issues.
Precisely. Bowlby's theory also doesn't specify how long the disruption of attachment has to occur for it to be considered maternal deprivation.
So the theory may be too deterministic in assuming any disruption, even for a short period, can lead to negative outcomes.
Absolutely. In fact, a study by Kagan et al., 1978, found no direct causal link between separation and later emotional or behavioral difficulties, which undermines Bowlby's theory.
Wow, that's really interesting. It seems there are quite a few limitations to Bowlby's theory.
Yes, but there is also evidence that supports the idea of a lack of emotional support and maternal love leading to insecure attachment behavior.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure, a study by Marian Radkiero et al., 1985, found that 55% of children with severely depressed mothers had insecure attachments, compared to only 29% of a control group. Romanian orphan studies and the effects of institutionalization. Did you know that the Romanian orphan studies conducted by Rutter and Sanugabark in 1998 provided valuable insights into the effects of institutionalization on child development?
No, I wasn't aware of those studies. What did they find?
The researchers observed a group of 165 Romanian children who had spent their early lives in orphanages. They found that 50% of these children were retarded in cognitive functioning and were underweight compared to a control group of British children adopted before 6 months old.
That's quite a significant difference. What happened as the children grew older?
Well, the study found that the Romanian orphans showed great improvements by the age of 4, with some catching up to their British counterparts. This was especially true for those adopted before 6 months old.
So the negative effects of institutionalization could be overcome with sensitive and nurturing care?
Exactly. The researchers concluded that the negative impacts of institutionalization could be mitigated through providing a caring and enriching environment. However, those adopted after 6 months old still displayed social problems and disinhibited attachment types.
Fascinating. And what about the long-term effects of institutionalization?
Rutter's follow-up study in 2001 found that problems with attachment, hyperactivity, and cognitive impairment could be linked to long-term institutional care. However, emotional issues and behavioral problems were not necessarily linked to institutionalization.
So individual differences in children also play a role in mitigating the developmental problems?
Precisely. The studies suggest that while institutionalization can have significant negative impacts, the specific effects vary depending on the individual child and the duration of their institutional care. Evaluating the Romanian orphan study. Romanian orphan studies focused on children from Romania, a country with a poorer education system, healthcare, and a collapsed government in 1989. This could have been the main factor for the under-resourced institutions, not the institutionalization itself.
I see. So the poor conditions of the institutions, rather than the institutionalization, may have been the primary cause of the children's struggles.
Exactly. And individual differences also play a role. Bowlby's theory that children who don't form a primary attachment within the sensitive period can't recover is not always true.
That's interesting. So some children are more affected by institutional care than others?
Yes, some children in the study showed physical and mental functioning similar to control groups that were not orphans. This suggests individual differences mitigate the effects of institutional care.
Wow, that's really important to consider. What other insights have these studies provided?
Well, the studies have helped improve the quality of care for children in institutions. Before, carers were discouraged from forming attachments, but now we understand the importance of emotional interaction for development.